Welcome back to Of Soul, the channel where real stories meet real emotions, where we dive into journeys that touch the heart, inspire courage, and remind us how unpredictable life can be. If you love tales that blend the extraordinary with the meaningful, you're in the right place. Today's story is one that has taken the internet by storm, and trust me, by the end, you'll understand why. So settle in, because what starts with a broken-down 1969 Camaro turns into a life-changing proposal, a test of character, and a twist no one, least of all the Heiress ever saw coming. It all begins on a quiet stretch of highway just outside a small Midwestern town. The wind was warm, the sun was dipping low, and traffic was light enough that most people would have cruised past without noticing much of anything. But for Ethan Cole, a 29-year-old mechanic with grease in his blood and a soft spot for vintage engines, the sight of a bright blue 1969 Camaro pulled off to the shoulder was enough to make him slow down. Actually, slam on the brakes. You have to understand something about Ethan. His father had been a mechanic before him, his grandfather before that. Classic cars weren't just machines in his family. They were memories, legacies, traditions. A 1969 Camaro, that was sacred ground. It was the model his father had always dreamed of owning but never got the chance. So when Ethan saw that car, hood popped open like a cry for help, prayer answered. He pulled over, hopped out of his old red pickup, and approached. Standing beside the Camaro was a woman, mid-20s, polished, elegant, and clearly frustrated. Her tailored white blazer didn't belong anywhere near an engine block, and neither did the diamond bracelet on her wrist. She looked up as Ethan approached, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Do you know anything about cars?" she asked, trying to keep her impatience from bubbling over. Ethan almost laughed, a bit. He said, "Mind if I take a look?" She stepped aside, relief washing over her face like sunshine after a storm. "Please, I've been here almost an hour." No one stopped. Ethan leaned over the engine, quickly diagnosing the problem, a busted fuel pump. Not catastrophic, but enough to strand her for good unless someone had the right tools, which, lucky for her, he did. As he worked, she introduced herself. Her name was Lily Hartwell, and though she said it casually, like it meant nothing, Ethan recognized it instantly. Hartwell Industries was printed on half the trucks in the region. Construction, manufacturing, real estate. A billion-dollar empire. The woman stranded on the side of the road wasn't just anyone. She was the heiress to one of the biggest fortunes in the state. But Ethan didn't say anything. He didn't treat her differently. He didn't ask for anything. He just fixed the car. Within 20 minutes, the Camaro was rumbling to life again, smooth and powerful, singing the way a classic engine should. Lily practically beamed. "You're a lifesaver," she said, "just doing what I can." Ethan replied. Then came the part that set everything else in motion. Lily insisted on paying him, not a tip, not gas money. She pulled out her checkbook and asked him to name his price. Ethan shook his head. "I'm not taking money for helping someone stranded." Lily blinked. People didn't tell her no, ever, but Ethan already had grease on his hands again, closing her hood, and something about his calm refusal intrigued her. "Then at least let me thank you properly," she said. "Dinner, my treat." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "All right, dinner." She smiled. One of those rare, warm, genuine smiles that suggested she wasn't used to being around people who saw her for more than what she represented. For the rest of the night, they talked about cars, about life, about choices, about pressure. Ethan learned that Lily's life, despite its glamour, was suffocating. She felt buried under expectations she never asked for, responsibilities she didn't choose. And Lily learned that Ethan, despite having very little, was content. His happiest moments came from fixing engines, drinking coffee on his porch, and restoring old machines that had stories in their rust. Dinner turned into 3 hours. 3 hours turned into a friendship, and that friendship turned into something that surprised both of them. Lily started visiting Ethan's garage, quietly, always without her entourage of assistants and drivers. It became her escape, and for Ethan, her presence became a bright spot in days filled with busted engines and oil stains. They talked about everything: dreams, family, fears. She even helped him sand down the frame of a Mustang he was restoring. Not very well, but Ethan pretended not to notice. A month passed, then 2, and then 3, and then one morning everything changed. Ethan was closing up the garage when a sleek black limousine rolled up, something that had never happened in their sleepy town. A tall, silver-haired man stepped out, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. His expression was sharp, assessing. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't have to. He was Gregory Hartwell, Lily's father. Beside him stood 2 assistants and one extremely uncomfortable chauffeur. But Gregory didn't bother with pleasantries. He walked straight up to Ethan, as though he had already judged him in a single glance. "You're the mechanic?" he said, like it was an accusation. "I'm Ethan," he replied simply. Gregory didn't smile. "My daughter seems fond of you." Ethan stayed silent. Anything he said would be used against him. Gregory continued, "I don't interfere with my daughter's hobbies. However," and here his lip curled, "I cannot allow my only child to throw her life away on someone who lacks ambition, status, or means." Ethan clenched his jaw, but kept his voice steady. "I'm not trying to take anything from her." "Good," Gregory said, "because you won't." There was a long pause, and then the billionaire delivered the line that made this story explode across the internet. "I'll give you a deal," Gregory said. "Fix my 1969 Camaro, the one I've kept in storage for 20 years. And you may ask for anything you want. If, however, you fail, you will stay away from my daughter permanently." Ethan stared at him. "What does fixing your car have to do with Lily?" Gregory shrugged. "Everything. Consider it a test." "Of what?" Ethan challenged. "Of worth. Most men would have walked away. Most men would have been intimidated by the wealth, the pressure, the absurdity of it all." But Ethan didn't hesitate. "Fine," he said. "Show me the car." Gregory nodded once, like he'd expected the answer. Within an hour, Ethan found himself in a climate-controlled private garage the size of a football field. Security cameras everywhere, floors polished like glass, and in the center of it all, draped under a silver cover like a sleeping animal, sat the 1969 Camaro. Gregory pulled off the cover with a flourish. Ethan's heart rocked. The car was magnificent. Midnight black paint, chrome inlays, original body lines, but under the hood, disaster. The engine was seized, half the parts were known to be impossible to replace, and the wiring looked like someone had let a toddler play mechanic. Gregory watched Ethan's expression with amusement. "You have 3 weeks. Ethan stared at the impossible task, 3 weeks to resurrect a machine that should have taken 6 months and a team of experts. And he knew exactly what Gregory was doing. It wasn't a test of skill. It was a test of endurance, pressure, humiliation. But Ethan didn't back down. He accepted the challenge, rolled up his sleeves, and spent the next 21 days working harder than he ever had in his life. Day and night, muscle and grit, sweat and stubbornness, the security cameras recorded every moment. Every time he cursed under his breath, every time he banged his knuckles on the frame, every moment he doubted himself. Lily tried to visit, but Gregory blocked her at every turn. He told her nothing, so she worried in silence. On the last night, hour 19 of a 20, our shift Ethan sat on the garage floor staring at the car. He had done everything, rebuilt what could be rebuilt, fabricated parts when none existed, cleaned every component until it gleamed. All that remained was the engine's final assembly and ignition timing. His hands shook from exhaustion, but he pushed through. At sunrise, with the final bolt tightened, he lowered the hood, climbed behind the wheel, and turned the key. Silence. He tried again. Nothing. A third time, still nothing. Ethan closed his eyes, letting the weight of everything crash into him. The deal, the deadline, Lily, the possibility of losing her forever. Then he heard something small. Something obvious, something he should have caught days ago if he hadn't been so exhausted. One simple loose connection. He fixed it, turned the key, and the Camaro roared to life, smooth, deep, breathtaking. The entire garage vibrated with the sound. Gregory Hartwell appeared moments later, looking like he had already prepared a speech for Ethan's failure. But when he heard the engine, his expression, just for a moment, cracked. Ethan stepped back, sweat-soaked, pale, exhausted beyond words, but victorious. Gregory circled the car slowly, inspected everything. Then, without looking at Ethan, he said, "What do you want?" Ethan didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for a job or a house or connections. He said only one word, Lily. Gregory looked at him sharply. "You want permission to court my daughter?" "No," Ethan said. "I want you to stop controlling her life. Stop deciding who she can see. Stop treating her like some deal you get to negotiate. She's an adult. She deserves freedom." Gregory didn't expect that. Not at all. He had braced for greed, for opportunism, for the usual list of demands people made when they won his favor, but Ethan asked for none of it. He asked for Lily's happiness. For a long time, Gregory said nothing. Then a voice came from behind them. "Dad." Lily stood at the doorway, breathless. She had forced her way past security moments earlier and now stared at the scene. The open hood, the tools, the exhaustion written on Ethan's face. She walked straight to him, ignoring her father. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, brushing his cheek. Ethan nodded, giving her a tired smile. "I'm all right." Gregory watched their interaction. Real, unfiltered, unpretentious, and something in him shifted. Not much, but enough. He cleared his throat. "Lily," he said slowly, "Ethan has passed the test." She frowned. "What test?" "Mine," he said simply. There was a long pause. Then, in a rare moment of vulnerability, Gregory admitted, "You always told me you wanted someone who saw you. Not the name, not the money, not the company. Someone real. I didn't believe such a person existed." He looked at Ethan. "Until now?" Lily blinked, stunned. Gregory continued, "I won't stand in your way anymore. And if someday you choose to marry him, you will have my blessing." Lily gasped softly. Ethan's eyes widened. It wasn't a proposal, it wasn't a promise, but it was acceptance, permission, respect, and as Gregory walked away, leaving the two of them alone beside the newly restored Camaro, Lily wrapped her arms around Ethan and whispered, "I didn't expect him to ever say that." Ethan held her close. "I didn't expect any of this." They both laughed, a soft, relieved laughter that echoed through the massive garage. And as the morning sun spilled through the windows, lighting up the Camaro like a symbol of new beginnings, one thing became clear. What started as a simple act of kindness on the side of a lonely highway had changed everything. Not because of the car, not because of the challenge, but because two people from completely different worlds found something rare, something real between them, love forged not in convenience, status, or expectation, but in authenticity, honesty, and a shared vision of what truly matters. And that is the heart of our story today. If you enjoyed this tale and want more stories that resonate, inspire, and uplift, make sure you're subscribed to Of Soul. This is where humanity lives, in moments like these.